My parents made me pretend I was the one who got pregnant, so my 14-year-old sister could stay in school. When I said I was losing everything I'd worked for, Mom just looked at me and said, "That's what big sisters are for." I didn't answer. That was 2 years ago. Last week, I got a graduation card from my sister. She signed it for both of us. What's the real reason your parents had you? I found out when I was 5 years old, and my parents strapped me to a table to drain my blood while I screamed that they'd only had me to keep my older brother Liam alive. Liam was born with severe hemophilia that made his blood basically water, and after spending their life savings on treatments that didn't work, my parents decided to create their own solution, me. They literally conceived me to be a walking blood bag for their real son, the one they actually wanted. Once I hit 40 pounds, the bloodletting began. Mom explained it like a bedtime story that night while the black market nurse they'd hired searched for a vein in my tiny arm. "You're so special," she cooed. "God made you to save your brother. That's why you're here." But even at 5, I knew kids shouldn't exist just to be spare parts. From then on, they took my blood every month. I'd sit hooked to the machine in our basement watching my blood flow through tubes into bags marked with Liam's name. Dad would ruffle my hair and call me our little hero, like I'd volunteered for this instead of being bred for it. After each session, Liam got cookies while I got dizzy spells and iron pills that made me puke. But Liam didn't like it either. He'd sneak into my room afterward with his own cookies, and we'd eat them under my blanket fort while he told me stories. When I'm better, he'd always say, "I'll take care of you for once." Neither of us understood then that he'd never get better, and I'd never stop bleeding for him. By the time I was 10, the monthly draws became every 2 weeks because Liam's condition was deteriorating. I'd miss school every other Friday to sit in the basement while they drained me. My teachers asked about my constant exhaustion, the bruises on my arms that never healed before new ones appeared. Mom told them I was anemic and clumsy. I tried refusing once, told my parents I had an important test. Dad grabbed my shoulders hard enough to leave marks. "Would you rather take a test or keep your brother alive?" Liam heard the argument and that night tried to refuse the transfusion, saying he'd rather die than keep hurting me. Mom sedated him. The next morning he apologized for his outburst, and I realized they'd convinced him that not taking my blood was selfish because he'd be forcing me to watch his hero die. When I was 16 and he was 18, Liam had a major bleed that almost killed him. After that, weekly transfusions became the new normal. Every Monday, I'd sit in that chair for 3 hours while they took more than they should. I started fainting in class, collapsing during basketball practice. When the school nurse demanded a real medical exam, the doctor pulled me aside afterward. "You're dangerously anemic," he said. "Your body can't keep up with this donation schedule. You need to cut back to once a month maximum, or you'll have permanent damage." My parents nodded solemnly in his office, then laughed about it in the car. "Once a month," Mom mocked. "Does he want Liam to die?" They put me on prescription iron supplements and vitamin injections to keep me functional enough to donate, but told Liam I was just out of shape from quitting sports. I got accepted to college with a basketball scholarship based on my performance before my body started shutting down. For the first time, I saw a future beyond needles and blood bags. I told my parents I was going, that Liam could get transfusions from a blood bank. Mom laughed, thinking I was joking. When she realized I was serious, she went pale. "The blood bank isn't reliable. You're his only guaranteed match." Dad held up my acceptance letter and ripped it in half. "You're not going anywhere." But then came the betrayal I never saw coming. They worked on Liam for days, showing him articles about blood shortages, contamination scares, people who died waiting for transfusions. They said I was exaggerating the side effects and lied that a doctor had cleared me medically. By the time they were done, my brother looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Please don't choose basketball over my life." I tried explaining I wasn't choosing basketball. I was choosing to stay healthy enough to help him long term. But all he heard was abandonment. That night, I heard him telling our parents to make sure I couldn't leave, that maybe they should look into legal ways to keep me home. 3 days before orientation, I came home to find my parents, Liam, and a lawyer in our living room. They'd drawn up papers making me legally responsible for Liam's care, including mandatory blood donation. The new schedule showed twice weekly donations with careful supplement